Big night. You enjoy the show.
Hey, so being famous looks pretty awesome. Seems like there's usually very large amounts of money involved. You could do like a ton of stuff with that. Maybe buy yourself a helicopter with your face on it. Just fly that thing around. People will be like, hey, that's that person's face. Plus, you get a whole bunch of adoration from fans. You walk into a room and people are like, hey, this famous person is here now, and I know them and I love them and I saw their face on a helicopter earlier today. Fans will even sometimes do crazy stuff just to show how much they love you. Maybe they'll mail you envelopes with locks of their hair inside. I mean, who doesn't want to receive an envelope full of human hair? That sounds fantastic. And even if you're not into that hair envelope idea, it's easy to see why so many people want to be famous, because it seems like the answer to a whole lot of problems that we as humans have. Money can often be an issue in life. Well, become famous and that'll work itself out. People crave to be at the top of the social hierarchy and receive validation for their existence, and fame will work all that out too. That seems to be a 100% guarantee. You become famous and everything is great. The most desired career amongst young people today is actually YouTuber, and I don't think that's because people are passionate about video production or anything. I think it's because it's a path to fame you can jump on without leaving your own home. Of course that sounds great. Like, hey little Timmy, would you prefer to become an accountant or stay in your bedroom and become a rich celebrity with millions of fans and millions of dollars? But today I want to talk about fame a little bit and some of the misconceptions surrounding it. There are a lot of different ways to become famous these days. You can do it on YouTube, you can even be a rat that carries some pizza in the subway one day. That rat's a millionaire now. But in this video, we're going to be talking about one of the classic movie and TV related paths to fame that millions of people are still very much chasing on a daily basis: becoming a famous actor. So we're going to take a look at some people who have achieved massive levels of fame and success and wealth, and take a look at how that actually affected them once they had those things. We'll talk about famous people talking about being famous, and maybe we'll discover that fame isn't all it's cracked up to be. Maybe you don't want to receive a stranger's hair in your mailbox as much as you might think you do. So first off, a big thing that you lose with fame is privacy. That is a major thing that famous people talk about missing. Robert Pattinson explained what that's like in an interview with Premiere Magazine a couple years ago, and it does not sound great. He said that when he's in Los Angeles, he has about 40 seconds from the moment he arrives somewhere before somebody asks for his autograph. Can you imagine not being able to walk anywhere for more than a minute without being stopped by a complete stranger? And Pattinson says that this is just getting worse for celebrities because of social media. He says it makes it all too easy for fans to track his movements, and that if Twitter didn't exist, he'd, quote, be in peace. He walks down the street and somebody tweets, oh my god, just saw Robert Pattinson on Santa Monica Boulevard. Suddenly there's a swarm of people on Santa Monica Boulevard. That does not sound fun.
Who is that?
George Clooney has been experiencing that level of fame for several decades now, and it's weird to hear from human beings not being able to walk around in public. They just can't do stuff that we take for granted. Clooney told Esquire, quote, the big house on a hill is isolating. There's no other way to say it. There are restrictions to this kind of fame. I haven't walked in Central Park for 15 years. I'd like to, you know? And then there's Johnny Depp, who's also been living that celebrity life for decades. He said on the Today Show that being famous is a little like living like a fugitive. Everything has to be some sort of strategy to get you into the hotel, to get you out of the hotel, to get you into the restaurant, to get you out of the restaurant.
You're putting me on.
That's nuts. Can you imagine going out to dinner with your friends and having to plan an escape route so people can't see you? It's like you have to plan a bank heist anytime you want some chicken nuggets. Now, I can already sense some of you typing comments like, yeah, well, they chose this life and they're rich and that's part of it and they have no right to complain. Well, that's actually a pretty messed up thing for celebrities too. People don't seem to think that they have the right to feel sad or depressed or lonely because they've found success. Just ask Daniel Radcliffe. Or, you know, if you're not currently in the room with him, I'll just tell you what he said in an interview. When he was being interviewed by Sam Jones, he said, quote, part of the thing is the expectation that you should just be delighted all the time. You have a great job, you're wealthy, you don't have a right to not be excited about the thing all the time. You suddenly start to feel, man, if I'm just feeling some human emotion of sadness, does that mean I'm doing this wrong? Am I not good at being famous? That's a messed up way to make Daniel Radcliffe feel. feel. We all did that. That's a lot to deal with mentally, especially seeing as he was a kid. He was a young teen when he started dealing with that fame. And he went on to tell Sam Jones that the way he dealt with that and the fact that he was being watched by everyone all the time was to get very, 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 very drunk. And then he said people were watching him even more because he was drunk, and so he was like, well, I guess I should drink more to try to get over this feeling. He developed a serious drinking problem as a teen as a way of trying to cope with fame. He ultimately managed to overcome it, but he says he can point to certain scenes in Harry Potter where he's just not there behind the eyes because he was still intoxicated from the night before. Justine Bateman wrote an entire book about how messed up it is to be famous called Fame, the Hijacking of Reality. You probably now know her brother Jason Bateman a whole lot more than her, but in the 80s, she was a massive celebrity thanks to her role as Mallory Keaton on Family Ties. The way she describes the feeling of being famous in her book is that you're separated from everyone and not even treated as a real person. She says you walk into a room and everything changes and people talk about you like you're not even there, like you're not real.
People don't seem to understand the pressure I'm under.
That's gotta be pretty hard to deal with psychologically. Imagine if you walked into a room and people just started talking about you as if you couldn't hear them. This also makes it tough to connect with people and create meaningful relationships.
I was hoping maybe this report could be a new beginning for us.
Idris Elba got married in April 2019, but in 2014, he said that being famous made it super tough for him to find someone, romantically speaking. He said sometimes you're not sure what's real or what's not. When millions of people adore you, it makes it tough to tell if the person you just met has a genuine connection with you or if they're just acting in a certain way because you're famous and they want to be close to you. Do they care about you or do they care about being close to a famous person? He admitted that he's gotten pretty paranoid about that in the past, and it made it very difficult to find true love. Idris just wanted someone to love, you guys. Here's another interesting case of fame getting in the way of stuff and just being a big old bother. Steve Martin, also known as Stephen Glenn Martin, for those of you who have been on his Wikipedia page. Steve Martin is one of the most famous and successful comedians there's ever been. In his book, Born Standing Up, and in his episode of Jerry Seinfeld's pretty straightforwardly named show, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, he talks about becoming insanely famous and the effect that it had on him and his work. See, Steve Martin's brand of stand-up comedy was really weird and conceptual, and he actually got started as a magician. He liked to do stuff like sleight of hand and nuanced little hand gestures. Another thing he'd do when he had smaller audiences was to make them all follow him out of the building and just kind of walk around town all together as he shouted. Like one time, apparently, he brought his audience to a fast food drive-thru and asked for 300 hamburgers, and so they all cheered. And then he was like, actually no, I think I'll just have one small Diet Coke, please. Anyway, so when he became more and more famous, well, I mean, you can't have an entire arena full of people follow you down the street. That's a riot. You've now incited a riot, and I'm pretty sure that's like a felony or something. Also, the subtleties of his act didn't work as well for a crowd of 7,000 people. He also said that since his act was conceptual, once everybody understood the concept, it didn't work anymore. So, as his crowds grew and he became more and more famous, his creativity was compromised. He ended up stuck in this loop of doing the same thing over and over and over again. He grew so much in popularity that he essentially became depressed. Here's how ridiculous his fame got. One time he had heart palpitations while on stage and had to be rushed to the hospital. As he's being carried in on a gurney, his nurse asks him to autograph his electrocardiogram sheet. Eventually, it all just became too much, and he quit stand-up comedy suddenly and forever. Well, he did it once like 35 years later because he lost a bet to Jerry Seinfeld, but yeah, no. In 1981, he walked off stage one night and he never did it again. He was just done. His material that he had developed over the course of like 18 years couldn't even work anymore because he had achieved fame. He was stressed and he was unhappy. Luckily for him, he was able to smoothly transition into a movie career that still let him stay in the comedy field and not have to be in front of thousands of people every day. But that's pretty nuts. He became so famous that his stand-up stopped working. All these examples are to say that becoming famous doesn't seem like it's all it's cracked up to be.
Keep it together. Keep it together, keep it together, keep it together, keep it together, keep it together.
Josh Radnor, the star of How I Met Your Mother, gave a big talk at Ink Talks about how before you become famous, you think that it's gonna bring you happiness. If you could just become famous, that'll be the thing that does it.
Are you, like, famous or something?
Yes.
But he and many other people have found that no, it doesn't do that. It doesn't solve all your problems. It's not a magic spell that brings you happiness. Even if you become famous for playing a wizard, you'd think that would be the exception, but it's not. So hey, not to get preachy or anything, but if you want to be an actor or a singer or even a YouTuber, that's great. But if the reason you want to be one of those things is just because it's a means to become famous, well, you know, take it from the famous people mentioned in this video, it's not as amazing as it seems. Although having a helicopter with your face on it would be pretty dope. I mean, that'll probably solve all your problems. That'll probably do it. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it. Can you think of any other celebrities that didn't enjoy being famous? Can you think of any actors that enjoy being famous a little too much? Will Smith? If you enjoyed this video, please do consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. That's a very nice thing to do. And as always, check back soon for a new video.